Hey Angela, let's take a look at your week 5 assignment 3 drawing. The color additions I think are very good. It does add a lot of visual appeal to the scene. Having the variety of the blues in place creates a nice amount of unity, and the different intensities of this kind of works as a focal point for me because it to me seems like the brightest blue of all the blue in here, and it's situated in a way that it kind of works as a focal point nicely. So this is definitely one of the really nice things about the drawing is really how well the color comes together. You've got some good lighting in place as well. Cast shadows, elements are shaded I think appropriately, and you've done a nice job of trying to get some textural stuff in place. I do think that maybe the texture is there might be a little bit too much of it. It might not necessarily be a texture thing, it might be a mark making thing, but having kind of the stroke that's moving diagonally for the windows, you kind of have the vertical stroke for the artwork on the top. There's a lot of mark making on the pillows, there's a lot of mark making on the table, there's a lot of mark making on the wall, and even down by the vase there's, things are being made up of several smaller strokes. Whereas I think there are things that could be just a lot smoother, and since there's so many contrasting directions to a lot of the mark making, it competes in a way, it doesn't kind of mesh as well. So I think there's some things that could just be done a little bit more effectively. I think the wood texture on the floor and the wood texture on the table itself could be more effective, because right now they feel a little bit overworked and a little too busy, and they don't feel like they have wood grain to them as much as they just feel like they have a series of marks that are being laid in. So this tends to work a little bit too generalized for me, and the table feels just a little bit too busy, even though I think the lighting situation is very good in it. And I think some things like the pillows, maybe a few of the pillows have some texture on them, but I don't think that they all need to have the texture that you have in place there, because it, especially with the green and some of the lighter blue, it just stands out and I think tends to overwhelm when it could just kind of settle down. And this is kind of a balance thing, if you're going to have several objects in the room that are very, very texturally heavy, I would say, like the artwork, like the floor, and even the table to a certain extent, then I think you need to ease up on it in other ways so that you give these textural elements a little bit of kind of room to breathe rather than just being inundated by them. That to me seems kind of like the biggest issue. I think you could kind of push some highlights just a little bit more in some areas to clarify structure. So being able to kind of separate the top plane of the couch from the side or from the front plane of the couch would be nice to see. I like the fact that you're trying to get some shading into the pillows, which is great, and some cast shadows underneath and in behind other objects is also very, very good. But I think you can push the highlighted part a little bit more on some of these elements and try and make things a little bit crisper and clearer. I think like this arm could be a little bit clearer in terms of how dark it is, so it separates from all the elements that are on top and beside it. A little more highlight in place here, although I don't think this needs separated more, but just a little bit of those kind of touches here and there I think can also help a lot. It's a nice composition though, but I just think a lot of it is getting lost in all of the mark making. I'm having kind of trouble focusing on certain elements. It's very easy for elements to kind of move easily into other elements, and so if you can kind of get things to separate better, which would be a reduction in texture in some elements, pushing the highlights a little bit more in some areas, and that sort of thing, I think it'll work out fine. Great color scheme though, really nice use of space, and it's got some really interesting kind of little details going on in it, not the least of which the artwork and the big windows that I think make it very successful.